Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in the matter now pending before the court be the truth so help you God?
All right, prosecution, you may proceed. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Could you state your name, please?
Alondriana Burns.
Do you know someone by the name of Kajavia Globe?
Yes.
Who is that to you?
My sister.
And is she an older sister or a younger sister?
Older.
How many years older than you is she?
2, but really 1 in like 360 days. So, 2.
Now, on December 12, 2015, did you report your sister Kajavia missing?
Yes.
Could you please tell us just at what point did you realize that you needed to make a missing persons report?
When it hit about midnight and nobody heard from her, nobody called, so that's not what she do. So I know she would call me, so I knew something was wrong, so I took it upon myself to do it.
Now you said midnight. Would this be that day, December 12, 2015, or a different day?
That would be that day. Well, the 11th, about 11:59, but it crossed over to midnight, I knew. So it was the 12th.
Now, what time did you actually go into the police station to make the report?
I'm not sure. It was about noon, if I'm not mistaken.
Did you do anything to try and find or locate your sister before you went to the police station?
Yes.
So was this on the 12th or was this on the 11th?
On the 12th.
And what did you do?
Get into her iCloud, her phone records, things of that nature. Yeah.
Did you have access to these things?
Yes, I gained access. Yes.
So did you go into her iCloud?
Yes.
Why?
Because I can track her location from there.
Okay. Were you able to track her location?
No.
Okay. And then you said you accessed her phone records.
Yes.
Why did you do that?
To see who's the last person to call. And to text.
Were you able to get a call log?
Not that day, no.
How long did it take you to get a call log?
It was Saturday around 10 p.m.
Did you do anything else besides go into your sister's iCloud and to try and get her call log?
No.
You stated that she is never out of contact. Is that correct?
Yes.
On December 11, 2015, had you had any contact with your sister Kajavia?
Yes.
Was this in person or over the phone?
FaceTime.
And do you know if this was in the morning, the afternoon, or in the evening?
Morning.
During that conversation, and don't tell us what you talked about, but did you have any indication that something was wrong?
No.
How long was that FaceTime conversation?
About 15-20 minutes.
Now, in December 2015, did you live with your sister Kajavia?
No.
How is it that you learned she had not come home by midnight?
John Black, her boyfriend.
Did she live with Mr. Black?
Yes.
Now, when Mr. Black contacts you, is this in person or over the phone?
Over the phone.
What do you do in response to that information? Not necessarily what the conversation was between you two, but what did you do?
Cry, panic.
And is that when you went into iCloud and things like that?
Yeah, I was on the way. I needed laptops pulled up. I needed everything together once I got to their house.
Did you ever try and call Kajavia on her phone?
Yes.
Did she answer?
No.
Do you know if you missed any calls from Kajavia after you tried to call her?
No.
Did you see Kajavia after the conversation you had with Mr. Black about her not coming home?
No.
Now, you stated that you went to the home that Mr. Black and your sister shared?
Yes.
And what city is that in?
Southfield, Lathrop Village.
And you went there in the early morning hours of December 12th?
Early morning hours.
What'd you do when you got there?
First thing first, I looked around.
Did you see anything
Nope.
out of place?
Mm-mm.
You had to
Nothing.
answer yes or no.
Nothing was out of place.
And how long were you at the home that Mr. Black and your sister shared?
About 30 minutes.
And you stated that later, December 12th, you went to the police department.
Yes.
Did you do anything after you actually made the police report?
When searching for her car,
And what kind of car did Kajavia have in December 2015?
a 2003 Golden Impala.
And was that car registered to her?
To me,
So it was your vehicle, but she was using it?
yes.
And did you find her car?
No.
Now, did you do anything else like flyers or petitions?
Yes, we got flyers of her face in the car, description on it, and we was passing them out.
And were there specific areas where you were passing them out?
Yes, it was approximately like 16 of us, so we broke down the neighborhood in groups, and we did like 7 Mile and Telegraph area, then we did like Telegraph to 6 Mile from 7 Mile area, we did like Greenfield to Evergreen area. We broke it down so everybody can get them out.
Now, on December 12, 2015, did you ever make any contact with the defendant, in this case, Mr. Maxwell Brack?
Yes,
Was this in person or on the phone?
on the phone.
Okay, and did you call him or did he call you?
I called him
And why did you call him?
because that was one of the last numbers in her call log.
And did you have a conversation with Mr. Brack?
Yes.
What did you ask him?
When was the last time he seen her or talked to her?
Okay, and this is referring to your sister
Kajavia, yes.
Did Mr. Brack answer your question?
Yes.
What did he say?
He said it was the following weekend when they went to Randazzo's.
So the weekend before
Four.
you went missing?
Yes.
Did you have any further conversation with Mr. Brack in that phone call?
Yes.
And what was that?
I asked him, were they seeing each other, and he said no.
Now, while you were distributing flyers around the neighborhood, did you have any contact with Mr. Brack?
Yes, we gave him some.
Okay, did you assign him an area to post the flyers?
Yes, we gave him Grand River and like the Greenfield area to pass out the flyers.
And do you know what day you assigned Mr. Brack that area?
Saturday?
December 12th?
Yes, December 12th.
For any reason, did you go in that area, Grand River and Greenfield?
Yes, I circled back. We circled back around him.
Why?
Just a gut feeling.
And what did you find when you went to the Grand River and Greenfield area?
Nothing. I went inside the Little Caesars to ask, did anybody come in? Described him. Did he come in and say, could he post or anything like that? And it was no. I went inside the fingernail shop. No.
Did you
Nothing.
see any of the missing person flyers posted in that area?
None.
Permission to approach, Your Honor?
Yes. Do you know Mr. Brack when you see him?
Yes.
Is he in court today?
Yes, ma'am.
Where is he seated?
Right there.
Record will reflect witnesses to identify the defendant.
Thank you, Your Honor. And for purposes of the record, I'm handing you what have been marked as proposed exhibits 20, 21, and 22. Do you recognize those?
Mhm.
Are those photos?
Is that a yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Are those photos of your sister Kajavia?
Yes.
Is that how she looked as of December 2015?
Yes.
People would move to admit proposed exhibits 20, 21, and 22.
No objection.
Admitted without objection.
Permission to publish, Your Honor?
Yes.
For purposes of the record, exhibit 20 is now being displayed. Moving to 21. And finally, Exhibit 22.
Nothing further, Your Honor. Cross-examination.
Good morning, Ms. Burns.
Good morning.
Is it Byrne or Burns?
Burns.
Thank you. Are you the next oldest sister to Kajavia?
Yes.
You don't live with her. You didn't live with her.
No.
And back in December of 2015, you lived separately from your mother.
Yes.
It'd be fair to say that you were very close with your sister Kajavia.
Yes.
You speak to her daily?
Daily.
Many times daily, it would be fair to say.
Yes.
Via text message as well as talking to one another.
Yes, sir.
And you shared a great deal about each other's lives.
Yes.
You knew that she was living with John Black back in December of 15.
Yes.
He was a man of some 14, 15 years older than she.
Yes.
About how long have they been living together?
5 months, give or take.
So back into the summer of 2015.
Give or take, yes.
Yeah. You gave
Yes.
did you get a new one or a different car? Or
Yes, sir.
did she buy it from you or you just gave it to her?
Just gave it to her.
That's what sisters do.
Yes.
Kajavia have the use of John Black's silver Mercedes a lot?
Yes, always.
She liked that.
Yes.
And on Friday, back off with that. Before Friday, December 11th ever came around, you knew that your mother didn't like Kajavia and Max being together.
Correct.
Did you feel the same way?
Yes.
And you folks made that known to Kajavia.
Always.
But she persisted.
Yes.
In fact, persisted to the extent that your mother and Kajavia got into it over it on occasion.
Yes.
In the morning on December 11th, you had a Facebook encounter with Kajavia?
A FaceTime on an iPhone. There you go.
FaceTime on the night. And it had to do with her having her weave attended to?
New hair, yes.
And that was sewn-in hair that she had.
Yes.
And you talked about that.
Yes.
And was that the last time you communicated with her on the 11th? Or did you?
Yes.
Jumping ahead to the night of the 11th,
Mhm.
the night, that midnight hour between 11th 12/11 and 12/12 Saturday.
Yes.
That's when you heard from John Black.
Yes.
You didn't hear from him at 8 o'clock in the evening.
Excuse me. No.
So 12/11, Friday morning, you're speaking with the FaceTime with your sister. And then what do you do for the balance of the day? What are you doing?
Getting my hair done. She was supposed to do it.
Wait. What's the relevance of what this witness
I'll
is doing? Okay.
When is the next time you had any communication about Kajavia? Would that have been that midnight hour?
With whom?
Well, with anyone, really.
Restate the question.
You heard from John Black around the midnight hour, 12/11.
Yes.
Did you hear from anyone else about Kajavia earlier in the day?
No.
Okay. When you heard from John Black, you immediately went over, you and your mom and other members of the family went over to Mr. Black's house in Leaf.
Yes. I
Did you
left
know-
my home in Taylor first, alone.
Of course. And when you got there, you were there with your mom. You drove your mom.
No.
Your mom and you drove separately.
We drove in one car, but we weren't the drivers.
Oh, okay. Somebody else was driving, and other members of the family were with you to Mr. Black.
Yes.
And you had already discussed with Mr. Black a video, a selfie video that Kajavia took?
Yes. He told me he opened the file. I said when I get there, I'll see it.
He said he had opened the file, and when you get there, you'll see it.
Yes.
And he knew how to do that.
Yes. They were on the same phone account.
They were on the same phone account, so he had access to that sort of thing on Kajavia's phone.
Yes.
And so you were shown the video as well.
Yes.
And of course it was offensive to you.
No.
It wasn't. It was a selfie that she had taken, and that was the kind of thing. I mean, that was okay. Strike that.
Okay.
Okay.
Did Mr. Black appear to be upset by the video?
In tears, yes.
In tears? Yes.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't know what that sound is.
I hope it's not. Is it mine? Probably is.
Okay.
Yeah. Mr. Black have knowledge of Kajavia and Max before that, didn't they? Didn't he?
Does she know that?
Do you know that?
No.
No, you don't know it, or no, they didn't have contact with each other?
He asked me, did I have knowledge that John had knowledge? I said no.
Okay.
You didn't have any knowledge. Okay. And so you were there for a while. Did you get any information about Kajavia's whereabouts when you were at John's house?
No.
Kajavia didn't have the Mercedes that day, did she?
No.
As far as you knew, the car that Kajavia was driving that day was the Impala?
Yes.
Did you find anything out about where she traveled that day?
Yes.
What did you find out?
That she went to my aunt's house around 2 or noon, I don't know, in the afternoon.
And that would be Ms. Madden?
Yes.
She did some grocery shopping using Ms. Madden's bridge card?
Yes.
Does she have personal knowledge of that?
You do have personal knowledge of that.
How does she have personal knowledge of that?
Oh.
Was she present?
No.
You had conversation.
Somebody told you that?
Hearsay.
Okay. Let's move on.
After you found out about the situation that she was missing, Kajavia was missing, what did you do during the night, the Saturday night? Did you contact Max?
Yes.
You spoke with him.
Several times.
And you were waiting till morning to do something?
To file a police report, I know you have to wait like 72 hours when a person is missing, but I forged the truth because I knew she wasn't just gone. So I waited about 20 hours and went to the police station.
Well, you waited from midnight of Friday night, Saturday morning, and you went to the police station. What time in the morning?
Don't recall.
Was it before noon?
Noon-ish.
Noon-ish. You didn't go at 9:30 or so in the morning.
Don't recall.
And you made your report,
Yes.
and then you left.
Yes.
And where did you go after that?
Home. To my mother's house.
Did you know where Max Brack was staying at that time?
No.
When did you first find out about Fielding Street, that Max was staying on Fielding?
When her body was found on Fielding.
And that's when you put two and two together?
Yes.
I don't know if the record reflects what that means. I really don't.
Okay. What did two and two together, putting two and two together, mean to you?
That he killed my sister or he placed her there. That's what I got from two and two together.
You got a call at some time or other letting you know that the car was found?
Yes.
How did you find out about that?
I got a call.
From whom?
My mother.
Do you know how she found that?
She got a call.
Do you know from whom?
No.
And you went over to the place where the car was found, located?
I went to the police station.
And then you went over?
And then me and the police went over, yes.
Your mom went with you?
Yes.
You stayed there for a little time?
No, we was asked to move off the block.
And that was the last you had to do with the gold Impala that was parked on Chatham, right?
That's the last I seen it, yeah.
You saw it. And where did you go after that?
Home to my mother's house.
When did you go over to Fielding Street the first time?
When Sergeant Slappy called me and told me to meet him there. So it was about the night her body was found.
The night of Monday,
Yes.
December 14th.
Yes, sir.
Is that the first time you, let me just ask the question, is that the first time you learned that Max Brack stayed on Fielding?
Yes.
You didn't know that before?
No.
And before the body was discovered, you were circulating those pamphlets, a number of people going through the areas around through a large neighborhood.
Yes.
And you had posters of Kajavia.
Yes.
Had you also, or had people posted Max Brack as being somebody you were suspicious of?
No.
Had people? or-
Had you posted anything
No.
indicating that you were suspicious?
No.
Did you talk to people in the neighborhood at Fielding about where Max Brack was?
I never made it to Fielding until her body was found.
And then you walked the neighborhood with others inquiring if they had seen Mr. Brack?
No, I never did footwork.
Did others
I don't recall.
on your behalf?
I don't know. Okay. Excuse me.
Do you know if... Strike it. No further questions.
All right, redirect, very briefly, Your Honor.
At the time of her death, how old was your sister?
24.
Did she have any health issues?
No.
She have a seizure disorder?
No.
Nothing further?
Anything else?
Do you know what physician she went to?
No.
Did she go to a physician, as far as you know, on a regular basis?
I don't recall.
Did she ever tell you she had a seizure?
No.
Not that you remember, or no?
No.
Did she go to the emergency room a lot? I mean, for treatment,
No.
as opposed to a,
That this witness knows about.
that this witness that you know about, Ms. Burns.
No.
Okay, thanks.
All right, anything else?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next witness?
And at this time, the people will call Officer Eugene Fitz. Your Honor, may this witness be released?
Any reason to recall this witness?
No.
All right, yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. Lineup change.
Okay.
Roll call, Ms. Amanda Fozzie, Your Honor.
Amanda, A-M-A-N-C-A, S-A-Z-I.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in the manner now intended before the court is the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
All right, prosecution, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning.
Good morning.
Could you state your name, please?
My name is Amanda Fozzie.
And where do you work, ma'am?
I work with the Michigan Department of State Police at the Northville Crime Laboratory in the biology unit.
And what do you do in the biology unit?
In the biology unit, I work on evidence that's been received from law enforcement agencies. I screen them for the presence of body fluids and send those samples forward for DNA processing, which I also perform. And as needed, I do report to crime scenes for crime scene processing.
Do you have to have any specialized education or training to do what you do?
Yes. I am required to have at least a bachelor's degree, which I do have from Wayne State University in biology. I also have a master's degree in forensic science from Michigan State University. And prior to being able to perform my duties at the lab, I went through over a year of training in-house with the laboratory system.
And how long have you worked for the Forensic Science Division of the Michigan State Police?
Almost 4 years.
And during those 4 years, have you examined pieces of evidence for either DNA analysis or creating a DNA profile?
Yes.
About how many times?
Oh, hundreds.
Have you ever been called to testify either with regards to your creation of a profile or your DNA analysis?
Yes, I have.
And how many times have you been called to testify?
About 15 total between body fluid identification and DNA.
And about how many times have you been determined to be an expert in your field?
Over, I think 16 total.
At this time, Your Honor, the people would move to have Ms. Amanda Fozzie declared an expert in the area of biology, identification, and DNA analysis.
Any objections?
No objection.
All right, motion granted based on the witness's education, experience, and training.
Now, Ms. Fozzie, you received several pieces of evidence to testify in this case, correct?
Correct.
And of those items, you were asked to do two things, is that correct? Either test for the presence of blood or generate a DNA profile?
I was asked to look at the items for possible presence of blood, or to swab the items, or send those samples forward for DNA. So I didn't actually perform the DNA processing, but I prepared the samples for the DNA analyst.
Now, did you place your findings as it relates to the evidence that you examined in a report?
Yes, I did.
Do you recall the report number that you generated?
No, I would have to refer to my report.
Do you have a copy with you?
Yes.
If that will refresh your memory, please refer to it.
Yes. My report was record number 1, dated March 2nd, 2016, with the laboratory number MD16194.
MD?
Correct.
Permission to approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Purposes of the record, I am approaching the witnesses. What has been marked as proposed exhibit 168, it is being taken out of sequential order, Your Honor. Ms. Fozzie, can you look at that and see if that is a copy of the 3-page report you authored in this case?
It is.
People would move for its admission. 168.
No objection.
Okay. Let me get that number again. It's MD 16-168.
194. The exhibit number is 168, Your Honor.
Oh, the exhibit number is 168.
Yes.
Okay, but it is 194.
Yes.
The report. Okay.
And because there are going to be several reports with that same lab number, this is record number 1.
Okay, I have that.
Now, Ms. Fozzie, before we get to the contents of the report, could you just please briefly explain to us how, I guess, any one of us could leave DNA on a particular surface?
There's a number of different ways. You could leave DNA just by handling an item. All of your clothes you're wearing right now probably have a great profile from yourself, and maybe even people that have laundered clothing with yours. If you leave any type of body fluid behind, those would also give good sources of DNA, whether it be blood, semen, or saliva. Those are the primary ones we're looking for. But the majority of things are things we call contact or touch DNA by sheer interaction with an item.
So more than one person can leave, I guess, a DNA sample on any given item?
Exactly.
Are you able to tell, like, when somebody, I guess, left a DNA sample?
No, we can't age when someone deposited a sample.
And how exactly do you extract DNA from the swabs that you receive?
if I were to perform the DNA testing, we add certain chemicals to the reaction to separate just the DNA component. There's a lot of other things going on in there. There's other things on the swab itself that we don't need for the DNA process. So just separating out the DNA.
And specifically in this case, could you, and I know this is going to be lengthy, but could you tell us the items that you received for testing or evaluation?
Sure. May I refer to my report?
Please do so.
I received container 1, which I did not process. It was a tape-sealed envelope. Container 2 was a tape-sealed envelope I did not process. I received item MD16194-3, was 1 swab from a garbage can lid. I received MD16194-4, was a swab from a garbage can handle. I received container 5, a tape-sealed envelope I did not process. I received item MD16194-6, was a piece of knotted red rope. Item MD16194-7 was a swab from the victim's left hand. Item MD16194-8 was a swab from the victim's right hand. Item MD16194-9 was a swab from victim's right rear bicep. Item MD16194-10 was a swab from the victim's right shoulder. Item MD16194-11 was a piece of red rope. Item MD16194-12 was a swab from exterior driver front door handle. Item MD16194-13 was a swab from interior driver front door handle. Container 14 was a tape-sealed envelope I did not process. Container 15 was a tape-sealed envelope I did not process. Item MD16194-16 was a swab from exterior passenger front door handle. Item MD16194-17 was a swab from interior passenger front door handle. Container 18 and 19 were tape-sealed envelopes I did not process. Item MD16194-20 was a swab from the steering wheel. MD16194-21 was a swab from gear shifter. Item MD16194-22 was a swab with suspected blood staining from the center console. Item MD16194-23 was a blood card from Kajavia Globe. Item MD16194-25A were right-hand fingernail clippings from Kajavia Globe. Item MD16194-25B, hand fingernail clippings from Kajavia Globe. Item MD16194-26 was a buccal swab from Emily Shepard. Item MD16194-27 was a buccal swab from John Black. Item MD16194-28 was a buccal swab from Maxwell Brack.
Does your report indicate which items you received?
Those were all the items I received. The ones I mentioned.
In the report itself, is there an indication which ones you received?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Now, the MD number that you read, that's the number that's assigned by the Michigan State Police, Michigan State Police Laboratory, correct?
Correct. Every time a new case comes in, a sequential number is generated, so that was the number that happened to be made for this case.
And next to the descriptions of the evidence, there's a number in parentheses on the right-hand side of your report. Do you know what that number indicates?
That number indicated the evidence number that the Detroit Police Department had on their evidence label.
Now, as it relates to the evidence that you received, I want to get into actually the conclusion. Now, I believe you received a piece of knotted rope and a piece of red rope. What kind of testing did you perform on those pieces of evidence?
For these items, I didn't perform any testing or chemical test or anything. I just swabbed those items for the possible presence of cellular material, thinking that it might have been used or handled. So swabbing it in order to obtain skin cells.
you generated a swab for those?
Correct.
Is there anything that you tested for the possible presence of blood?
Yes.
And what items were those?
May I refer to my report?
Yes, please.
The items I tested for possible presence of blood included the swab from the victim's right rear bicep, a swab from suspected blood staining from the center console, the left hand fingernail clippings from Kajavia Globe, the swab from the victim's left hand, and the right hand fingernail clippings from Kajavia Globe.
Were any of those items negative?
Yes.
Could you explain to the jury what that is?
In this case, we use a chemical test to detect if blood might be present. If it is possibly present, we say it's positive, and if it's negative, it means it does not indicate that there's a possible presence of blood. And I say possible presence of blood because there are known things that react with this chemical that make it look like it's positive and may not actually be blood.
So which items were tested and returned a negative result?
A negative result was obtained from the swab of the victim's right rear bicep, swab of suspected blood staining from the center console, and from the left hand fingernail clippings from the victim.
Did any of the items that you tested return a positive or possible blood?
Yes.
And what items were those?
The two items that were positive for the possible presence of blood were the swab from the victim's left hand and the right hand fingernail clippings from Kajavia Globe.
Now, do you do anything subsequent to a positive, determination of possible blood?
No, it's part of our procedure that we don't do additional testing after that. There are other tests we could do, but at this point we would just send a sample forward for DNA analysis.
So you take a swab of those items and forward those as well?
For these, some of them came to me as swabs, so I would cut off the swab portion, just the cotton part of the swab, and from the items like the fingernail clippings, I would have swabbed those and sent those swabs forward.
And the remaining items that you received and you analyzed, I believe the garbage can lid, the garbage can handle, the swab from the victim's right hand, the right shoulder, the exterior driver front door handle, the interior driver front door handle, the exterior passenger front door handle, and the interior passenger front door handle, the swab from the steering wheel and the gear shifter. What did you do as it relates to those items?
For those items, I simply cut the swab, the cotton portion of those items, and sent them forward for DNA and put them in a small tube for that process.
And those would be processed by another analyst, not yourself, is that correct?
Correct. In this case, it was a different scientist. Sometimes I would process the DNA myself, but it depends on our rotation at the time.
And did you do anything else as it relates to the evidence you received?
I did also take cuttings from the buccal swabs and blood card from the individuals I mentioned and sent those forward for DNA as known comparisons. I also collected apparent hairs and fibers from the right hand fingernail clippings and packaged them separately if needed to be analyzed at a future time.
Thank you. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Ms. Fozzie, good morning.
Good morning.
You, of course, have nothing to do with the collection of any of this evidence.
In this case, no.
And you receive it in lock seal folders, etc.?
Right. They come in envelopes or brown paper bags, depending on the size of the item, that is already sealed and initialed prior to my receiving it.
So, the first two items, container 1 and 2, not open, not examined. And do you know what became of those materials?
Since this report generated says they're not open or examined, they are ready to be returned to the law enforcement agency. So they were just placed back into storage for return.
There were swabs from a garbage can lid and the garbage can handle, and you were able to, I think the response was, it was negative. I
didn't perform any testing on those two items. I just sent them for DNA. I cut off the cotton part of those swabs.
I'm not talking about the red rope. Or the red,
Oh.
I'm talking about the swab from the garbage can lid and garbage can handle, 194-3 and 194-4.
Neither of those were tested. My report stated that they were just simply retained for DNA.
I think this witness said that she only did the preparation. She didn't do the analysis.
Anything, the red rope, but can you describe what that was? Do you have any recollection of it? Was it a rope or was it a sort of a cloth kind of a rope?
They were, I'm sorry.
Yes.
They were segments of a rope. One was knotted, one wasn't. I can refer to my notes if you'd like more information on what I recorded as I looked at it.
Yeah.
Okay. The piece of knotted rope, item 6. I wrote that it was a piece of red rope or cord with a knot. It was about 20 centimeters long, and that was all I stated for that. And the other item, item 11, the red rope, was about 142 centimeters long, similar appearance, and it had frayed ends.
The console, there was some suspected blood from a console, and you came to the conclusion negative, correct?
Correct.
In other words, it wasn't blood that was on the console.
Correct.
The positive findings were what?
The positive blood tests were from the victim's left hand and from the right hand fingernail clippings from the victim.
And you had nothing to do with determining what they might have matched or anything like that?
No, I did not. I didn't do any of the DNA comparisons. I simply prepared the samples for the DNA analyst.
And any questions I might have about the results of the DNA analysis should be directed to somebody else?
Correct.
Thank you.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, witness. Next witness.
At this time, if people will call Ms. Lynn Helton. May this witness be excused, Your Honor?
Any objections?
No.
Yes, she's excused.
Thank you.
Lynn Helton, L-I-N-N-E-H-E-L-T-O-N.
That's right. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in the matter now pending before the court is the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Prosecution, you may proceed.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Could you state your name, please?
Yes, my name is Lynn Helton.
And where do you work, ma'am?
I'm employed by the Michigan State Police Northville Forensic Laboratory.
And in what capacity?
I am assigned to the biology unit at the Northville Laboratory. I'm a forensic scientist, and I'm responsible for the evaluation of forensic evidence as it relates to the evaluation of biological material and DNA testing.
Okay. And do you have any specialized education and training for that particular position?
Yes, I do. I have a bachelor degree in chemistry from Mercy College of Detroit. I have a master's degree in forensic chemistry from the University of Pittsburgh. I also have additional specialized training sponsored by the Michigan State Police, including crime scene search and evidence collection, identification and recovery of decomposed human remains, hair and fiber comparison, advanced hair and fiber comparison, bloodstain pattern interpretation, and advanced bloodstain pattern interpretation. And I've received specific continuing education on an annual basis with specific regard to forensic DNA testing, including attendance at 10 national FBI CODIS DNA database conferences. I've attended 5 international symposiums on human identification sponsored by the Promega Corporation. I've attended DNA auditor training in Quantico, Virginia, hosted by the FBI. I've had advanced DNA auditor training, also hosted by the FBI in Washington, D.C.
And in your capacity, have you been called upon to examine evidence for either a DNA profile or analyzing a DNA profile?
I have.
About how many times?
I have testified as an expert witness in excess of 100 times.
Okay. And with that, Your Honor, I would move to have Ms. Lynn Helton declared an expert in the area of biology, identification, and DNA analysis.
No objection.
All right, motion granted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Ms. Helton, in this case, you were asked to analyze several swabs to see if you could maybe identify potential donors to DNA profiles. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, could you explain to, I guess, all of us, first, how do you analyze a DNA profile, and then how do you match it to a potential donor?
DNA analysis begins when we follow a series of validated protocols in our laboratory that allow us to isolate DNA out of biological material, that is recovered DNA out of skin cells or blood, as an example, and then further work with that DNA that we've recovered to identify specific regions of DNA that we use for comparison purposes between individuals. These regions of DNA are very unique. They're specific for forensic purposes, comparison purposes, and we know these regions of DNA vary a great deal between individuals. So unlike regions of our DNA that are the same between us, and about 99% of all of our DNA is the same because we all have eyes and hair and heart and lungs, for forensic purposes, we have selected areas of DNA that vary a great deal between individuals, even closely related individuals like parents and offspring, between brothers and sisters. And we can use these regions of DNA to make comparisons and tell individuals apart and try to make some determinations about who may be a DNA donor to biological evidence.
Now, is there a minimum standard that you guys allow for comparison?
Our ability to actually make comparisons to DNA that we've obtained does determine on the amount of DNA that we have recovered from an item and the quality of the DNA, meaning if we've detected DNA, how much DNA have we detected? Is it a lot of information, enough information based on our validated protocols and interpretation guidelines, may we make conclusions about that DNA, or are there aspects of the DNA data that we've obtained that our protocols say we may not make determinations or comparisons or draw conclusions about that information. So the first part of the process involves attempting to obtain DNA, making decisions: how much DNA do we have? Is it a mixture of DNA? Is it DNA just from one individual? And then using our interpretation guidelines, then we know whether or not we can compare the DNA from an evidence sample to known DNA samples that we may have also received, giving us known DNA profiles from individuals.
Now, as it relates to the items that you were asked to analyze and compare, did you create a report for this case?
I did.
Do you recall what the laboratory number as well as the record number is for the report you authored?
Yes, may I please refer to my report?
Yes, please.
The unique laboratory number for this case is MD16-194, and the record number for my written report with the results of my DNA analysis is record number 5.
Motion to approve, Your Honor.
Motion granted.
Ms. Helton, for purposes of the record, I'm handing you what is marked as proposed exhibit 172, also taken out of order, Your Honor. Is that a copy of the 3-page report that you authored for this case?
Yes, it is.
And does that contain not only the items that you received, but your conclusions?
It does.
If would move to admit proposed exhibit 172.
No objection?
Objection, admitted without objection.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Ms. Helton, I believe you testified that sometimes you're able to compare DNA profiles to known samples. You received several known samples in this case, is that correct?
I did.
And which known samples did you receive for this case?
I received known DNA samples from the victim in this case, Kajavia Globe, if that's the correct pronunciation of the victim's first name, Emily Shepard, John Black, and Maxwell Brack.
And those samples that you received, do you use those in determining whether or not you can compare them to the DNA profiles for the other swabs?
I don't use the known DNA samples from individuals to decide or make decisions about the DNA obtained from the evidence profiles. That's done first. That evaluation is completed before any before I really look at or view the known DNA profiles from individuals. So the determination about whether or not I can make statements or what kind of conclusions that I can make about an evidence item, whether I will be able to make comparisons to it, that's all done well in advance of looking at a known DNA profile from an individual.
Now, as it relates to, I believe it's item ending in 3A, the swab from the garbage can lid, were you able to generate a DNA profile, a comparable DNA profile from that swab?
Yes, I was.
And did you actually analyze that and come up with a match?
For that particular sample, in the DNA report, it's item MD16-194-3A, and it's described as a swab from a garbage can lid. I did obtain a DNA profile from this item. It is a mixture of DNA from multiple contributors, but because of the complexity of the mixture, this sample was suitable for evaluation using an expert forensic software program that is used in our laboratory for the evaluation of DNA mixture profiles. And this expert software program was utilized by a different forensic examiner in our laboratory in order to make an interpretation with regard to this sample and perform any comparisons to known DNA profiles.
Now, were there other items that you were able to, I guess, generate a profile that ultimately were forwarded on to be used in this same software?
Yes, there were 8 evidence items that yielded DNA mixture profiles, and ultimately for all 8 of those items, they were assessed by another forensic examiner in my laboratory using that expert software program for analyzing DNA mixture profiles.
And which items were those?
As I just referred to, item MD16-194-3A, swab from garbage can lid. Item MD16-194-10A, swab from victim's right shoulder. MD16-194-11A, swabs of red rope. MD16-194-12A, swab from exterior driver front door handle. MD16-194-17A, swab from interior passenger front door handle. MD16-194-20A, swab from steering wheel. Item MD16-194-21A, swab from gear shifter. And item MD16-194-25A1, swabs of right hand fingernail clippings from Kajavia Globe.
Now, the items that you did not name, specifically, I guess we'll start in order. The item ending in 4A, the swab from the garbage can lid. Were you able to generate a DNA profile for that swab?
Yes, I was.
Okay. And was this a swab that you were able to make any comparisons or draw any conclusions?
No, for this particular evidence item, the swab from the garbage can handle, it yielded a partial DNA profile that was also a mixture of at least 3 donors, or at least 3 contributors, 3 individuals contributing to the mixture. Although it was a partial profile, meaning only very limited information, only it was not full DNA information at every genetic location that we looked at. It was a partial profile. It yielded such limited information that no conclusions or interpretations could be made with regard to that profile, and it was too limited for another forensic examiner to even use the expert mixture interpretation program on that particular item.
And the item ending in 6A, the knotted red rope, were you able to generate a DNA profile from that item?
I was.
Were you able to draw any conclusions from that profile?
I was not. Similarly, it was a partial DNA profile of at least 2 donors, so there were at least 2 individuals contributing DNA to the swabs of the knotted red rope. However, it was the DNA types that were detected were also very, very limited, even though it was a mixture. So limited that no interpretations or comparisons could be made to that DNA information.
And the item ending in 7A, the victim's left hand, were you able to generate a DNA profile?
Yes, I was.
And were you able to draw any conclusions?
I was.
And what were your conclusions?
The DNA profile obtained from the swab from the victim's left hand was consistent with the known DNA profile from the victim.
So it was Kajavia Globe's DNA.
It was.
As it relates to the swab, the item ending in 8A, the victim's right hand, were you able to generate a DNA profile?
I was able to obtain some DNA information from that sample, yes.
And was it suitable for comparison or conclusions?
It was not. It was a very partial DNA profile, extremely limited DNA data, so it was not sufficient for any type of interpretation or comparison purposes.
And the item ending in 9A, the victim's right rear bicep, were you able to generate a profile?
I was.
And were you able to draw any conclusions or make any comparisons?
I was.
And what were your conclusions?
The DNA obtained from the swab from the victim's right rear bicep was a partial profile consistent with the known DNA profile from the victim and one additional contributor. However, the DNA types obtained from the additional contributor were so limited in nature that it wasn't possible to draw any further conclusions regarding those additional DNA types or make any comparisons.
So, 2 donors, one of them being Kajavia Globe and the other one not enough to compare.
That's correct.
As it relates to the item ending in 13A, the interior driver door handle, were you able to generate a DNA profile?
Yes, I was.
And were you able to draw any conclusions?
I was not.
And why is that?
The swab from the interior driver front door handle yielded a partial DNA profile of at least 2 donors. So again, a mixture of DNA from at least 2 individuals, but very partial DNA information. So even though it is a mixture, there's not enough DNA information there in the regions where I was able to obtain DNA types to be able to make any interpretations, to draw any conclusions from that, or make any comparisons to that.
And as it relates to item ending in 16A, the exterior passenger front door handle, were you able to generate a DNA profile?
I was.
And were you able to draw any conclusions or comparisons?
I was not.
And why is that?
The swab from the exterior passenger front door handle was a partial DNA profile, very limited DNA data, and insufficient DNA data in order to draw any conclusions or make any comparisons.
And I believe the final item was item ending in 25B1, swabs from left-hand fingernail clippings of Ms. Kajavia Globe. Were you able to generate a DNA profile?
I was.
And were you able to generate any conclusions?
I was.
And what were your conclusions?
The DNA profile from the swabs of the left-hand fingernail clippings from Kajavia Globe was consistent with the known DNA profile from the victim.
So it was Kajavia Globe's DNA?
It was.
And you said the 8 remaining items were forwarded on to another analyst?
They were.
Did you do anything else as it relates to generating DNA profiles or comparing DNA profiles outside of what's contained in your report?
I did not.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Cross-examination.
Could I have 1 moment? We don't have to go over it all again, but a lot of these items that you announced were things that were sent on to a different place for further analysis for the kinds of conclusions in their area of expertise.
Yes, that's correct.
And with regard to the items that you were able to test and deal with, where there was known Kajavia Globe DNA. You had known Kajavia Globe DNA that you compared with other items.
I did. I had a known DNA sample from Kajavia Globe, and I did get a known DNA profile from her that I could compare to the evidence items, correct?
No other known DNA contributor was within your conclusions.
If I'm understanding your question correctly, yes. The other known DNA profiles that I had from the other 3 individuals, when I was able to make a comparison to an evidence item, meaning the evidence item gave sufficient DNA results that would permit me to begin making comparisons, I did not make any associations to those evidence items and known DNA profiles from the other 3 individuals.
That's sort of the end of the story as to your contribution.
That is correct.
Thank you.
I have a curious question. In reaching your conclusion about how many donors were present, is there always sufficient quantity and quality of a profile to say how many donors, or you just only can go by what you see? For instance, like with the rope, you indicated that there were 2 donors.
Yes.
What you find, the quality and quantity of the profile that you have indicated 2, is there any way to determine if there could have been more than 2?
Yes, Your Honor. It's in a scenario where we have a mixture of DNA, and a mixture of DNA means there's DNA present for more than one contributor. So depending on how much DNA is present on an item, depending on that, it may be possible to know strongly or definitively how many contributors we are seeing to a mixture. If there's a lot of DNA present on an item, it's easier for us to make a determination as to how many individuals may be present in a mixture. If there's just a very small amount of DNA that we are detecting, and there are indications of possibly 2 donors, maybe an indication of 3 donors, it's harder for us to say with exactness how many people may actually be contributing to the DNA mixture, because we may be detecting an indication of 1 or 2 or maybe 3 donors at some genetic locations, but because other genetic locations aren't giving us any DNA information at all, because there's such a limited amount of DNA, of course, at those genetic locations where we're not really seeing any indication of DNA, we lose the ability to further assess what's the total number of contributors to a DNA mixture. So to answer your question, sometimes it's very clear to us how many DNA donors there are in a mixture. Other times it's less clear, and it's particularly less clear or harder to tell when we have a very limited amount of DNA present. We can just maybe get an indication that we're seeing at least 2 rather than we're definitively seeing 3 people in a mixture and we have a large amount of DNA and we're very confident that there are 3 people in a mixture.
Okay. Anything else?
No, Your Honor.
All right.
Might I
Yes.
follow up a bit? Can you determine when you get a DNA sample, can you tell from what part of the, in other words, is it blood DNA, is it skin DNA, is it from the hand, is it from the foot, is it from the mouth? Do you have any idea about any of that sort of thing?
We certainly can, and it's many times dependent on the nature of the sample. So if a sample that's submitted to the lab is a blood stain sample or thought to be a blood stain sample, we can do some testing and verify that it is a blood stain. So therefore, when we're obtaining DNA from a blood stain sample, we know the origin is the blood. If it's a different kind of a sample, say a swabbing of the top of someone's skin, or possibly the swabbing of an item that would be regularly touched by someone, like a door handle, if there isn't any visible blood and if no blood is detected, then it's indicated or presumed that the DNA is being recovered from skin cells because it's a swab of skin. It's from a door handle that's going to be touched where skin cells are going to be left behind. So in that way, we can deduce the nature of the DNA that we're obtaining from the sample would be attributable to skin cells, or possibly we can do a test for saliva if we suspect saliva might be present on something, and then we would know that the DNA would be recovered from mouth cells.
So that in DNA recovered from the interior of a car, in places where people touch interiors of cars, one would be assuming that that would be deposited by epithelial or skin cells.
That's absolutely correct, yes.
Other things, given that they didn't lick it or kiss it or anything.
That's correct.
Hair. If one grasps hair hard and against resistance, would epithelial scales, given that they're not gloved hands, be left on that hair?
Would skin cells be left on the exterior of the surface of the hair?
Yes.
It might be possible that that would be the case, although quite a substantial amount of hair would have to be recovered as a large clump of hair where that entire surface could be swabbed to attempt to recover skin cells. There's not enough surface area on the exterior of just one hair, so thin and so fine. We wouldn't recover enough skin cells on the exterior of just one strand of hair in order to get a typable DNA result from someone having touched the hair. The owner of the hair, we would attempt to get DNA from the root material of the hair to identify who left the hair behind. That would be different than who might have touched a strand of hair or a clump of hair.
And my question is directed not to a strand, but to a clump, a handful of hair.
It might be possible.
Yeah. And that's done.
That would actually not be routinely done. That would not be something we would routinely see as evidence submitted to us or routinely done. I'm not certain I can think of a time when that's actually been done, where a large enough clump of hair together as a clump where we would have complete confidence that all of the hair in the clump started out at one point as one object, and then would be submitted to the lab where we would swab the exterior of a large clump of hair like that. So that would not be a routine occurrence with regard to forensic evidence.
But it is within the state-of-the-art of forensic science, DNA.
It would potentially be something that we could evaluate, yes.
would strongly militate in favor of doing that kind of test if you had the whole, say it was a wig or a weave, if you had the whole thing to analyze.
Yes, correct.
Thank you.
We're assuming that we know what DNA refers to, but I think we should have a record here as to what we're talking about, what you're talking about. You're the expert.
Thank you, Your Honor. DNA is the genetic material that is contained in all of our cells. It's inherited from our moms and our dads, and it contains all of the genetic information that sustains life. If we could see a DNA molecule, it would look like a spiral staircase with all the steps along the spiral staircase containing genetic information that our bodies read just like we read words in a sentence, and our bodies know what to do with that genetic information. And like I did mention earlier in my testimony, DNA is unique to an individual, although many regions of the DNA are the same between us, because we all do have eyes and heart, lungs, hair. We make other proteins that sustain life, proteins that our kidneys function and our heart function, brain chemistry. So all those are the same between us. But there are very specific regions or steps along the spiral staircase where research has been done for forensic purposes, and we know those regions vary a great deal between individuals, and we can use those regions for comparison points. But it is the genetic information that is inherited. Every cell in our body has a DNA molecule in the center compartment of the cell. That DNA molecule is the same in every single cell that I have. Your DNA molecules are the same in each of your cells. And it is possible for us to make examinations of that genetic material.
Any other redirect?
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, witness. You may step down.
Thank you, Your Honor.
We have a short visit, maybe about half an hour. And then we can take the recess.
I believe so, Your Honor.
Okay.
I don't believe I said so before, but at this time, Your Honor, the people will call Ms. Tina Marie.
First name is Tina, T-I-N-A.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in the matter now before the court to be the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Prosecution, you may proceed.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Could you state your name, please?
Tina Morrell.
Ms. Morrell, in December of 2015, did you live on the street of Kajavia?
Yes.
Is that in the city of Detroit?
Yes.
And were you home an early Sunday morning in December 2015, specifically December 13th?
Yes, I was.
Now, when is your trash day over there?
The pickup is on Monday.
Okay, so trash is picked up on Monday.
Yes.
Okay. And on December 13th, that Sunday, did you see someone, I guess, pulling a four-wheel dumpster that drew your attention?
Yes.
Okay, the first thing I want to ask you is, do you recall if this was in the morning, the afternoon, or in the evening?
It was in the early afternoon, about 11:30, something like that, early afternoon, morning.
Okay. Now, what particularly drew your attention to this person in this dumpster?
because he was taking it out that early in the morning. Usually, the dumpsters are put out in the evening.
Was this a male or a female?
This was a male.
Okay. Was this someone that you had seen regularly in the neighborhood?
Not so much, no. You know,
Keep your voice up.
I'm sorry.
Is this someone that you would recognize if you saw him or her again?
Yes,
Do you see that person in the courtroom?
yes.
Could you point out that person and describe what that person is wearing?
Yes, and he's wearing black pants, black vest, and white shirt.
And for purposes of the record, the witness has identified the defendant, Mr. Maxwell Brack.
So requested.
Now, you've indicated that it was fairly early to be taking out the dumpster, correct?
Yes.
Now, did you see where the defendant came from with the dumpster?
Well, yes.
Was he coming from the opposite side of the street of your home or the same side of the street of your home?
The same side of the street of my home.
Okay, and did you see where he went with the dumpster?
Yes.
Where did he go?
To the vacant house that's right down the street from me.
Now, is this on the same side of the street as you or the opposite side?
The opposite side.
Do you know how long that home had been vacant?
That home had been vacant over a year, a couple of years. It's been vacant for a while.
What color is this house?
Yellow.
Now, could you tell at the point when you see the defendant with the moving the dumpster if he was having any difficulty with the dumpster?
Well, yeah, it was kind of leaning the dumpster.
And you stated that he put it in front of a vacant house.
Yes.
What happens after he puts it in front of a vacant house?
He stood there for a while, and he was on the phone for a while. And I noticed him, after a time, took the dumpster to the back.
Okay, now when you say the back, do you mean back towards your side of the street?
No,
And back where?
towards the back of the vacant home.
And so the defendant took the dumpster that he placed in front of the house and took it to behind the vacant house?
Yes.
And did you see the defendant come from behind the vacant house?
Yes.
Do you know about how long he was back there?
Just a few moments. Because he pulled it back and pulled it back. It was just strange.
When the defendant comes from behind the vacant house, does he have anything with him?
Anything with him?
Does he have a dumpster with him?
Yeah, when he pulled it back to the curb. Like I said, that was kind of strange, pull it back and forth like that.
So if I have you correctly, you saw the defendant come from your side of the street with the dumpster,
Yes.
put it in front of the yellow vacant house.
Mm-hmm.
You have to say yes or no.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry.
Talk on the phone for a little bit.
Yes, he did.
Take that same dumpster and go behind the yellow vacant house.
Yes.
And then after a time, come back out with the dumpster.
Yes.
What did he do when he came from behind the vacant house with the dumpster?
Well, he kind of pulling the dumpster, he kind of slipped with the dumpster. And he stood in front of the dumpster and he was on the phone, talking on the phone for a while.
Was this the first time that it was in front of the vacant house?
The first time I saw it, yes.
First time before he went into the back of the house?
Yes.
Or first time after he came from the back of the house?
I'm saying before he went behind the vacant house.
Okay.
I know.
I think she's saying, correct me if I'm wrong, that the person was on the telephone both before he went behind the vacant house and after he came.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
I just want to make it clear.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, when the defendant comes from behind the vacant house,
Mm-hmm.
did you see what he did with the dumpster?
No, he just left because I had went back in the house at that time. You know, that's the first time I had went back into the house. You know, so because it wasn't like I was standing there.
Watching.
Yeah.
Now, the time that you see him take the dumpster out the first time, put it in front of the vacant house, and when he takes it in the back, did you ever, you know, focus on something else, or is this all while you're just watching?
That was all while I was just watching. Like I said, I went back into the home because, you know, I'm just back and forth on the porch.
Now, when you see the defendant go behind the vacant house and then return from behind the vacant house, is this all that one time, or is there a point in time when you go in the house and then come back out?
I go in the house and I come back out a little bit later.
Okay. Now, when you say that you go in the house and come back out later, what did you see happening as it relates to the defendant in that vacant house?
I'm trying to remember because I know I went back into the house and I was sitting on the couch, and I came back out a little bit later, but it was kind of like he was just standing there in front of the dumpster.
And where was the dumpster at that time that you noticed the defendant just standing?
In front of the vacant house.
Do you know if he was standing closer to the handle or closer to the actual opening of the bin itself?
Closer to the opening.
After this whole business with the moving of the dumpster several times, did you see the defendant again that day?
Later on that day, yes.
Okay. And is this in relation to the dumpster or something else?
No, that's something else.
Okay. What did you see him doing?
He walked past my house on my side going towards 7 Mile.
Now, were you home when the victim's body was ultimately discovered?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know, not necessarily the address, but do you know which house it was that her body was discovered behind?
The yellow vacant house.
The same vacant house that you've been testifying about?
Yes.
And this was that following day, that Monday?
That Monday, yes.
Now, did you immediately tell the police what you saw?
No, I did not.
And in fact, you spoke to the police on January 22nd, 2016, is that correct?
Yes.
Why did you wait so long?
Well, because one, I thought someone else may have, that this would not take this long, that someone would say something, and no one did. And I couldn't let that, it just couldn't, it didn't sit right. It just, no.
You needed to come
I needed to come forward. I needed to say something.
Now, Ms. Morrell, when you did come forward in January, you spoke with the police officer. Do you recall being shown 6 photographs?
Yes.
And you were asked to identify anyone that you may have recognized as the person who was moving around that dumpster. Is that correct?
Yes.
And do you recall if you identified someone?
Yes, I did.
Permission to approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Your Honor, this exhibit is proposed exhibit 174. Ms. Morrell, I'm going to hand you 6 photos. Were those the 6 photos that you reviewed on January 22nd, 2016?
Yes, they are.
We're going to admit proposed exhibit 174.
No objection.
Admitted without objection. And one of those photos actually bears your signature on it, is that correct?
Yes.
And which page is that?
Page 4.
Is that the person that you saw maneuvering the dumpster on December 13th, 2015?
Yes.
Permission to publish, Your Honor?
Yes.
displaying page 4 of 174. You might need to turn off the light, just to
We'll get it in the light.
Can you see that, Ms. Morrell?
Yes.
And that exhibit actually has your signature on it, correct?
Yes.
As well as the date and time that you signed it?
Yes.
And that's the person you identified as maneuvering that dumpster on December 13th, 2015?
Yes.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Cross.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Ms. Morrell.
Good afternoon.
You live on Fielding Street between Pickford and Clarita.
Yes.
correct?
Yes, correct.
You live in the second house from the corner
Yes.
of Clarita.
Yes.
Clarita, next block up on Fielding is 7 Mile.
Yes.
Are you on the east or west side of the street? Do you know? No. It's okay. You live on the even side of the street.
Yes.
You live there with your husband, Steve?
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor. Why is it relevant who she lives with?
Sustain the objection.
Oh. You were home on Sunday.
Yes.
That would be Sunday the 13th, 2015.
Yes.
Had you been recently home from the hospital?
Yes.
You were well, though, at that point, recuperating.
Recuperating, yes.
And your neighbors, are you close with any of your neighbors?
No, not really.
You sort of keep a distance from
Yeah.
them?
Not so much a distance, just do not interact.
Don't interact.
Yes.
Things go on in the neighborhood that are problematic, that are troublesome, and you want to keep away. Keep your distance.
Not so much.
Do you know any of your neighbors to the left of you?
No.
Do you know any of your neighbors across the street?
Yes.
Which one? Directly across?
Directly across and right next door.
December 14th, 2015 was a warm day for December, wasn't it? A warmish day.
Yes.
You went out on your porch.
Yes, I did.
By the way, that statement that you gave on January 22nd, wasn't it? Do you recall that date when you went to the police station?
Yes.
That's more than 5 weeks after a body was found on your block.
Yes.
I think you said on direct testimony that your observations outside were about 11 or 11:30. Isn't that what you said?
Yes.
You remember in that statement that you gave, I was home Sunday afternoon, the day they found the girl. That Sunday around 1 or 2 p.m., I saw a guy pull a garbage can. You remember saying that it was 2 p.m. that you saw it?
Possibly.
And if you said 1 or 2 p.m., that would be, when you said that was closer in time than today, when you're saying 11:30. it was closer in time to the events that we're talking about.
I'm not sure if that's early
Was
afternoon,
it
sir.
When you're at your home and you see, it's not unusual that garbage cans are put out on Sunday, is it?
No.
And when you're making your observation of a garbage can being put out, these are good size, they call them Corville dumpsters, is that what you, or you don't know them by that?
I don't know about it,
Oh.
no.
But they're big dumpsters, they hold, well, they're big dumpsters.
Yes.
And when you're looking up the street, you're looking south, you're looking to your left
Yes.
from your porch, from your house. And you see a man, apparently a male, moving a dumpster.
Yes.
Do you see him first put a dumpster on your side of the street, on the even side of the street?
No.
You only see one dumpster being put out? Is that right?
Yes.
Did you see, when you saw the person moving the dumpster, did you know who that person was?
No.
And you wouldn't, as you said, you didn't know anybody who lived to your left up the street by face.
Not really. No.
When the dumpster was found on Monday, was there a canvass of the neighborhood by the police? Did the police come around talking to people?
On Monday?
Yes.
I'm assuming they were out there.
Did you speak to anybody?
No.
No, she can't assume.
I'm not assuming.
She can't.
I'm asking if
She said she assumed that they were out there.
Oh, I
She
see.
cannot
I see what
assume.
you're saying.
Either she saw the police or she didn't see the police.
Did
or
you
she
or
heard
didn't
the police and she didn't hear the police.
Did you know the police were around on, did I say Sunday? I meant to say Monday evening. Did you see the police around on Monday evening?
Yes.
Did you talk to the police while they were around on Monday?
No.
What time on Monday did you see the police?
That was in, they came around, it was in the evening when all the
Okay.
news and things came up. It was Monday evening.
Monday evening. As of when you saw the garbage bin being moved by a man, you didn't know who that man was or who that face was. You couldn't have made an identification of that man at that time.
What do you mean by
When you saw the garbage can being moved, did you know who was moving it?
by name?
By face.
Yes.
You had seen him before?
No.
You hadn't seen him before. And I'm assuming that you didn't really know him by face at that point in time.
I saw him.
You saw him.
Yes.
After the garbage can was found and the body was found, were there people from the family who came through the neighborhood talking to folks in your area?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Did you talk to your husband, Steve, about what was going on in the neighborhood?
I been told him about that day, yes.
You were on
About that day, meaning Sunday or Monday?
Sunday or Monday.
I told him about Sunday.
Okay.
You told him about Sunday seeing somebody take a garbage can across the street.
Yeah.
You said you saw somebody actually take a garbage can to behind the house?
Yes.
What route was taken? Did they go up the driveway? Did they go up the south side, the other side of the house? Do you know which way they went?
I'm not sure where the driveway is at that house.
Because that house's driveway and its property is vacant and very covered with leaves and debris at that time, right?
No, what I'm saying, I don't know where the driveway is at that house.
You said that the person that took the bin or the dumpster behind the house only stayed a couple of minutes? Is that what your testimony is?
I was on the porch a couple of minutes. I did not stay there and watch the whole day, or, you know, I was on the porch a couple of minutes.
And you say you saw that person return with the dumpster from behind the house?
Yes.
You saw somebody take a dumpster behind the house and return with the dumpster from behind the house?
Yes.
Do you know where that dumpster from behind that was returned from the behind the house went? Where it was taken to?
No.
You didn't watch, or you just didn't? You weren't watching that?
What, in the house, behind the house? What, I mean,
Well, you couldn't see behind the house,
right.
I'm assuming. And you say
Exactly.
you saw somebody bringing a dumpster from behind the house, the yellow vacant house.
Yes.
Did you see where that person with the dumpster went with the dumpster?
I'm trying to understand. You're saying what?
From behind the house?
Right.
Right. Where did that person go?
He brought the dumpster to the curb.
Which curb?
In front of the yellow house there.
In front of the yellow house.
Yes.
And so that's where the dumpster was left, from behind the yellow house and then in front of the yellow house. Is that what you're saying? Yes?
Yeah, when he brought it back from the back, yes.
Putting it in front of the yellow house at the curb.
Yes.
One moment. Thank you. No further questions.
Read it very briefly. On that Sunday, December 13th, 2015, did you see anyone else go behind that yellow vacant house?
No.
Did you see anyone else fiddling around with the dumpster either in front of or in the rear of that yellow vacant house?
No.
Now, the dumpsters that you put out on the street, they all look the same, don't they?
Yes.
Do you know if the dumpster the defendant took out in the back, took behind the yellow vacant house, and then he brought one out? Do you know if that's the same dumpster?
No.
Nothing further.
Witness, you indicated that you had never seen that person before that time,
Not,
that Sunday.
not to my recollection, no.
Okay. When did you conclude that the person that you saw was the defendant? When did you make that conclusion?
Well, when I saw him at the yellow house with the dumpster, and when he walked past my window going towards 7 Mile, this is the same fella.
Okay. But when did you conclude that Mr. Brack was the person who took, I mean, when did you connect the incident of that night on the 14th with Mr. Brack?
When I went and talked with the police officer in January, and they showed me the pictures, and I saw his picture in there, that this is the guy that poured the dumpster and the guy that walked past my window.
Okay. Had you seen photos of Mr. Brack on TV or in the newspaper or anything like that between December 13th and January 22nd?
No.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
None, Your Honor.
Any?
Yes, if I must. Had you heard Max Brack's name mentioned before you went to the police on January 22nd? Had his name come to light?
To my recollection, no.
Did it come to light that the body of the woman who was found, and you knew that there was a body of a woman found?
Yes.
Did you did it come to your knowledge that a person associated with that body, with that woman, lived on your street? Did that come to your attention? You didn't know?
No.
Was there much talk in the neighborhood, or as far as you knew, about the relationship between the person in the body and somebody down the street?
No.
What were you waiting for to come forward? What were you waiting for?
I was wrestling with myself about coming forth because, quite frankly, I didn't want to get involved. And it kept weighing on me that I need to say something. That I need to say something because I saw something.
You had to say something?
Yes, I had to say what I saw.
You had to say
What I saw, yes.
And
If anything came of it, fine, but I had to say what I saw. And I saw him with this dumpster.
saw a man moving a dumpster?
No, I saw him with this dumpster.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you, witness. You may step down.
Thank you.
Any reason not to excuse the petition's excuse? Okay, we're going to recess today. I do have a question. Do we have other DNA witnesses?
Yes.
Are they here today?
No.
Okay. I was going to say maybe we should take those and conclude that, but okay. All right, then. Members of the jury, thank you for your time and attention today. And we will recess on this case until 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. And remember not to discuss the case among yourselves or with anyone else. Do not allow anyone to discuss the case